Hello, I'm Butch Curry from Zombie Nirvana Games. Welcome to the 14th episode of Fantasy Cartography with Adobe Photoshop, the podcast where I share my favorite tips, tricks, and techniques to help you make cool maps for your role-playing games. I suppose we'll have to call this the contagious episode as I'm getting over the flu right now, if you can't tell by my voice. I'd like to try and cover 2 techniques today, but depending on how my voice holds up, we may have to cut it short, so please just bear with me. Now let's get started. We've got our background set up for our new map, and it's time to lay out our landmasses. Now, when I'm making a map, I don't often care exactly how the landmasses are shaped, but I do like them to have a nice, natural, organic shape to them. You can get that just by drawing it in, of course, but I like to let Photoshop do the heavy lifting for me, particularly when I'm in a hurry. If you read ZombieNirvana.com a couple of weeks ago, you've already seen the most basic version of the technique I'm about to use. It was in an article I put up called World Building with Clouds. I'm going to throw a little variation into it this time, so those of you who read that article won't get bored. Now, originally when I did this technique, I did it in a channel in my original drawing here. I just went over to Channels, created a new channel, and did all the work there. But for this version, I'm going to do it in a completely different document and then just transfer it over when I'm done. Now remember in Photoshop that if you want to create a document that's exactly the same size and resolution, if you don't want to have to go through and double check all the settings, you can just go into your original image, hit Control A to select everything, Control C to copy it, and that'll load it into the clipboard, and then Control N, make a new document, and that'll automatically create it exactly the right size. So just hit OK. I'm not actually going to paste anything in there, but Photoshop did the work of making the document exactly the right size and resolution for me. Now I'm going to make a new layer, and then come up here to Filter, down to Render, and over to Clouds. And I'm going to use these clouds to create my landmass shapes for me. The way I'm going to do that is by coming over here, back to the Layers palette. I'm going to click on Add a new filler adjustment layer, and I'm going to select Threshold. We talked about Threshold a little bit back in the previous episodes, and as you can see, just by using that threshold adjustment on these clouds, it's created a very natural, organic landmass shape for us. You can go through and adjust the threshold if you want. Effectively, what you're doing is raising and lowering the water level on your planet. There'll be some pretty cool tricks we can do with that you'll see in my book. But we're just going to pick a point that we like, right about there, and just hit OK. Now the reason why I did this with a adjustment level rather than just using threshold on the clouds layer down here by going up to Image, Adjustments, and Threshold is because I may want to edit this. And this gives me a really easy way to do it. I can come down here to my clouds layer. I can come over here and select the Burn tool. And the Burn tool used on this clouds layer will make areas darker, so it will bring that coastline in. If I switch to the Dodge tool, which I can do either by coming over here to the toolbox, or just by holding down the Alt key while I have the Burn tool selected, I can bring the coastline back out, just like that, and make the land mass larger. And of course, a really easy way, if you just want to completely get rid of some areas, is to just select the brush, make sure you have black selected, and just paint them out. If you have any little bitty islands that you want to get rid of, that's the quickest and easiest way to get rid of them. Once you're done, just flatten your image. Select A, or Control A to select everything. Control C to copy. Come back over to your original document. Create a new channel in the Channels palette. And Control V to paste. Control D to deselect. Just like that. Now that we've got our channel created, we can just Control-click on it to load it as a selection. Come over here to the Layers palette. And we're going to create a new layer. This time we're just going to create a plain old layer and add a layer mask to it by clicking on the Add Layer Mask button. Now I can just paint on this layer without having to worry about the outlines or making any kind of selections because the mask has already made the selection for me. Let me show you that. I'm just going to select a nice watercolor brush, I'll choose this one right here. A nice soft green color, kind of like this. Bring the opacity down a bit, maybe to about 40%. I'm going to bring this brush size up and just start brushing this in. And you can see that the layer mask is taking care of the shape of the landmass for me. Just like that. You could fill this selection in however you wanted. I'm going to just use this watercolor though, because it's going to leave a little imperfection in it, and but that's okay. I kind of like the look of that. Now I also want to add an interesting coastline around this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to come back over here to the channels palette and control click on that channel again to load it as a selection. You could always go up to select, load selection, and do it that way, but I just find that control clicking on the channel is just faster and easier. Then I'm going to come up here to the edit menu, down to stroke. I want to make sure I select black as my color. I'm going to give this about a 2 pixel stroke right on the center and just hit OK. That creates an outline there. Now that's okay, that's not very exciting. I want to make this a little more interesting, so I'm going to come up here to select. I'm going to come down to modify and to expand. I'm going to expand this by about 4 pixels and then stroke it again. Now if you remember last week when we talked about actions, you'll find that this particular technique is a really good one to create an action for, because you have to do the same thing a few times. Creating an action for it will just speed things up for you. So down to stroke, 2 pixels again. I'm going to do this again. Select, modify, expand. I'm going to push it out to about 6 pixels this time. And then edit stroke with a 1 pixel stroke. I find it makes it a little more interesting looking if you change up the distance between the waves, that's effectively what we're going to be creating here, and their thickness. So now that I've got those done, I'm just going to hit Control D, and you can see that's created a little outline around these the coast for us. We can take this to the next level by coming over here to our layer. We want to kind of break these lines up a little bit. An easy way to do that is to come over here to your layer and lock the transparency. You want to click on this button here, the little checkerboard under the lock menu. So anything else that we do to this level is only going to happen to the pixels that are filled. So we're going to come up here to filter, down to noise, and over to add noise. We're going to select monochromatic, and we're going to crank the amount way up, and you're going to see a lot of little white dots appear in here. Up right around 225% is pretty good. So right about there. Then we're going to come over here and we're going to switch the mode of this layer from normal to multiply. That is going to take away all the white pixels and just leave the black ones. If you were working on a different color background, you might want to switch the mode of this layer to screen instead to take away the black pixels and just leave the white ones. That works really well if you're using a blue ocean color background on your map. If this is looking just a little too broken up for you, you can take it even one step further by going to Filter, down to Noise, and selecting Median. What Median does is it basically clumps groups of like pixel colors together. And you want to leave it at just one pixel for the radius. But that breaks up that coastline really nicely. We'll zoom back out. Just like that. That's going to do it for this week. Don't forget to stop by zombienirvana.com for this week's show notes and for more information about my upcoming fantasy cartography book. Until next week, thanks for listening and happy mapping!
Will ye go, lassie, will you go?